Today on The Career Musician, we have V. Jordan, who is a studio vocalist with expertise performing as a soloist and in a group for jazz, classical, and gospel genres. She is also an accomplished session pianist, teacher, and accompanist. She performed the Saint-Saëns Piano Concerto No. 2 with the Santa Clarita Philharmonic as the featured soloist at just 19 years old. She has also appeared on the Disney Channel, Bizaardvark, the Goldbergs for ABC, and has performed live at Grammy MusiCares behind Mavis Staples and Leon Bridges, as well as the Little Voices charity behind Crystal Starr. She's also starring as one of the female jazz leads in a brand new SAG TV show titled Nights of Swing. Right here on the Career Musician Podcast, you don't want to miss it, V. Jordan. V. Jordan, welcome to the Career Musician Podcast.
Hey everybody. How's it going, Nomad?
Good. So glad to have you. So for those of you who don't know listening, V is an incredible singer and piano player. I like the double talent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I came across you literally on the web, just doing a search, and
Right.
Some of the music that you had out there was just mind blowing. And I saw a video of you doing an Earth, Wind & Fire cover song with Verdine White and some of the cats from EWF. So I was like, okay, excellent. And you were doing it at Scott Frankfurt's studio, who's a friend and a guest of the podcast. So everything just kind of came together. And here we are.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. Thank you for reaching out. This is going to be great.
Absolutely. All right. So something I always like to start out with is asking guests how they got bit by the music bug.
Good question. I started playing the piano. So piano's my baby, and that's really where my heart is at. And, I got a Nord sitting right here that I'm just plugging along, and I was 5 when I started lessons. I was 19 when I stopped, and I was doing classical. And when I was 19, I did this huge piano concerto. It was called the Saint-Saëns Piano Concerto in G minor No. 2. And I did it all from memory with a Philharmonic orchestra as the featured solo pianist. And after that year, it took me a year to practice and learn it all. I just decided that I was done with classical because I felt like my heart was calling me to something else, but that had really been my whole world. And that's when I discovered the greats, and I discovered Stevie Wonder, and I discovered Nat King Cole. I never heard jazz before. I mean, it was just like I was opened up to this whole new world. And even though I loved the piano growing up, I had such an immediate pull toward the jazz and gospel genres especially. So I started singing with a vocal jazz ensemble in the Santa Clarita Valley in Los Angeles. And that took me to Texas at the Jazz Educators Network Conference, and that took me to Monterey, and that took me to all these different places where there was these homes of all these incredible jazz cats, singers and musicians alike. I got to know everyone in the band everywhere I went, because in my head I still considered myself a pianist, so wow. I was always more in touch with the band than I was the singers. The singers always gave me issues, so I got to know everybody, and then they said, come to the show. And man, I was hooked. Totally hooked.
What age was this?
When I started getting...
that you started discovering jazz and R&B?
19.
Okay. So, okay. That's crazy. How many? Sorry.
6 years ago.
Okay. So, man, I knew you were young. So, okay.
Yeah.
So... Here's the crazy part. Up until then, you never heard jazz and R&B?
No.
Okay.
Isn't that nuts?
That's
so
very...
I grew up in a super conservative home.
Okay.
And we were super classically driven, academically and classically. I mean, it was just we would go to the Walt Disney Concert Hall and listen to these incredible symphonies and wonderful piano players. But it was all about classical.
Sure.
And it was a great foundation for me, and I truly love it, but I got so sick of it. Sick after that year practicing for the concerto performance. Plus I was still a teenager, and I was like, I feel like there's more out there, you know? And so I just started exploring. Of course, I'd heard of a lot of different things, you know, walking into a coffee shop or a library or whatever, you hear all sorts of music. And it had always struck me as interesting. But for some reason, 19 is when I really dove in and I started listening every day. Doris Day, Nat King Cole, Stevie Wonder, Julie London, Ella Fitzgerald, and then gospel and just all this stuff started coming out and reggae and like soul and I was like, "Whoa, this is insane. I need to be here wherever this is."
So a
And so
couple
yeah.
a couple things I want to unpack here because it's really interesting. The first thing
Yeah.
is, when you're on the trajectory of being a professional classical musician, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
As they say, a legit player, so to
Sure.
speak. That is a very unforgiving path. And you mentioned something, by the way, the concerto, the composer was
Saint-Saëns. It's like
Cesson.
Saint. It looks like Saint-Saëns. It's French, of
Oh,
course.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you said that it took you a year
Yeah.
to actually learn that piece and commit it to memory.
It was about 90 pages of music.
Right. So that's one of the things I want to point out to our fellow career musician community out there. If first of all, if you are a legit classical player, you can identify with that immediately. You get it. For those who don't know that world, that's a serious commitment that, like I said, it's unforgiving. It doesn't really allow for much space to do anything else.
Yeah.
Right? Right.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room for error. And errors can be the most minute. You miss an eighth note, you miss an inflection that you needed to put on that 16th. I mean, it's so small and so detailed, and it's wonderful because it teaches you a lot of discipline. But when I listened to jazz, I was like, I was shocked by the of each player. And even though there's a lot of that, and there's certainly every player's classical, and there's a lot of, freedom in that as well. This was just so different. And it just very. So it was phenomenal to discover jazz for sure.
You cut out for a second. You were shocked by the what of each player?
Just by the freedom of each player in jazz. Gotcha. And how and how it could be the same song.
Right.
But about 4 different players would play it 4 completely different ways.
That's right.
With entirely different emotions, even, and touch and choices. Especially when it came to improv. I mean,
well, it's individual interpretation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing that I find really interesting about, and this was just your opening statement, so this is good.
Yeah.
You were 19, you discovered jazz and soul music and R&B and all these other things, and then you started singing, is that right? Because your singing voice is well developed to only be 7 years old. Like, You've only been singing for 7 years, is that true? Is that accurate?
So the way that I kind of see it is this. I was singing in, like church choirs.
Okay.
Since I was 12, but it was like, ooh, it's like those little tiny soprano 1, way up at the top. I had a really small voice, really small. I was very quiet. I had no confidence, and I wasn't a singer. So I wasn't making myself try to be that in any way.
Copy that.
In fact, I ran from it. I was really like, I will never, in my mind, I will never do this. Oh my gosh, I can't. I had one solo as a 14-year-old in front of my church, like 400 people, right? And I was just sweating from every pore possible. I was like, I could never be a singer, or a musician, professionally. No way that would work. This is way too nerve-wracking.
Right.
And then, everything changed. But when I turned 19 is when I really started to invest in my voice. And when I started listening to those guys specifically, I started singing along with them in my car, and I started blending to them, and I started trying to make myself, how do I sound like that? Oh, what's that called? Oh, that's a riff? Let me try to do that. Okay, that sounds really fun. Let me try that. And so So I started doing it, and it was just me and my guitar, me and my keyboard, me and my ukulele, me and my cello. I would start messing around, and I picked up cello just to, have some fun and try to do something different a while ago. But just like it's really hard to describe because yes, of course, everyone like sings a little bit, but I didn't know I could sing until I joined that jazz ensemble, and I was better than everyone there. I could read better. My rhythm was perfect. My inflections were good. I knew what the director was going to say before she said it. I was just like, okay, I have something here. And not in a cocky way, but just like, I think I have something and I think I need to explore that.
Right.
So 19 was really when that happened.
Well, what's really important here is that, my dad used to tell me all the time, if you learn classical, you can play anything, And I think that's true. You learn the fundamentals in like you said, a very strict classical manner. So there you have it. Your rhythms, your inflections, your dynamics, your sight reading. And that's something else that you mentioned on your website, and I want to talk about that. So as a piano player, you can sight read really well, whatever instrument you play. Can you sight sing as well?
Yes.
Okay. So then that really translated, and that is, that's an invaluable skill. Yeah.
Huge. I will say COVID really made me rusty because I haven't been singing live for a little while, but
Got it.
my sight singing, that sort of came with the territory. When I was sight reading piano, sometimes, especially when I started playing jazz and I started playing the improvs, I would try to sing along with them, and I'd be able to guess more or less correctly because I had seen this pattern before. I knew the position of my hand, which almost helped with the position of where to put the notes in my voice.
Right.
So I could feel it. It wasn't so much a technical thing. It wasn't so much like we're in B flat major and I need to go up a fifth, and it was less of that, and it was just more I could feel the fifth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So that's what sight singing for me really looks like, and it's become a little bit more technical since then, but that was an invaluable skill that really allowed me to grow my career as a studio musician or studio vocalist, because a lot of people didn't know how to sight sing. So that was a huge plus for me coming in.
That's what I was going to ask you next. And knowing those intervals, man, when you can sing intervals sight unseen, you can just nail it. That's incredible. So talk about that. So how did you get into the studio scene as a vocalist, and how's that progressing?
Right. So I started working for Scott Frankfurt. When I was 21. So at this point, I've had 2 years of jazz, gospel. I started singing with a gospel choir. I started singing with another ensemble. I started getting paid for work to sing, but it was very small, very, very small. And I was just starting to learn the instrument that I had. And that's really due also to another woman. Her name's Renee but she was a vocal teacher. I was an accompanist, a piano accompanist. And I started when I was 18. That was my first job. And it's been my only job since. But I was playing the piano, sight reading for other people who were doing like recitals, juries, musicals for high school, middle school, whatever. People would hire me to read. So I would just go and...
So they throw a chart in front of you, you sit down, and you're just automatically playing on the spot. You don't need rehearsal. You just nail it.
Yeah, in rehearsals, and they would also hire me to sub for someone in a band or something like that, but it was really simple. I was also playing at church, so I was doing some chord stuff as well, but it was mostly like sheet music types. So it was tough work, but it was really good. I loved it. And because of that, that's how I met Renee. And Renee heard me one day humming along in one of her vocal lessons to some kid who was on Broadway doing like Chip or something for Beauty and the Beast. And she asked me to help teach him the notes, and somehow from that she discovered that I could sing, and she was like, girl, you you got something there. I'm going to pull it out of you. And I was like, no, leave it alone.
It's a good thing she did.
Oh my God, she pulled me by my hiney and just, she just really said, you need to be confident and let go. So it was really because of her that I decided to invest in my voice and then actually go forward and use it to make money and to have fun and enjoy my life. So yeah, shout out to Renee for that. But because of that, I decided to leave school. At the time, I was getting a master's in nutrition science. That's a whole other part of my life. I was going to be a nutritionist. And I had just graduated, and I was tired of school. I wanted to do something really different. And I found Scott Frankfurt really randomly. I got the job on the spot. And the next day, I was working with Sergio Mendes. Serving him coffee, talking to his background vocalist, meeting his piano player who I just did a project with, just like starting to build my connections, starting to build my understanding of what it was to be in the studio and to, and for some reason I listened to Grisenia, who's Sergio's wife, who sings on all of his projects, singing these incredibly hard jazz intervals and like crazy stuff that she was doing. And for some reason in my mind, I was like, I think I can do that. I think I just need some help, but I think I can do that. So in the middle of that time, I got hired to sing for Disney Channel. That was my first job as a studio singer. I was on Bizarre-Vark.
I was going to say, is that the Bizarre-Vark?
With Olivia Rodrigo.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on Bizarre-Vark with her for an episode, and I was singing in some like high school a cappella group. And I had the solo, like the whole, little riffy, we are Utopia. And I was doing a little thing like that. And they were like, ooh, we like you.
All the waterfalls. Yeah.
I was so into riffing at that point. So I was like, this is amazing.
It was all new at the time. So that's crazy. It's really interesting how you have such a natural propensity for it. And it literally just kind of happened. It sounds like it almost happened by accident, It's like, a lot of people
really pulled into it.
Yeah.
A lot of other people are the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Oh, that's great. It's cool that you give the credit too.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have chosen this for myself. And that's kind of the interesting part of my story is, and the biggest thing I usually tell people when they're coming up in their career is just to be kind to people, because you never know who's who and who's going to pour into your life. And these people, I mean, without them, I have, on my fingers, I have the people that I give all the credit to for where I'm at.
That's right.
And Scott Frankfurt is one of them. And I always give them credit because I would not have taken the leap if they wouldn't have believed in me and told me to believe in myself.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a powerful message right there. So for everybody listening, if you're experiencing what V is talking about, currently, really take those words to heart. You have to believe in yourself. And if you're having trouble, reach out to those around you, reach out to your network, talk to people. And you might say, oh, I don't have a network. Well, you know what? Now you have another job cut out for you. Go build a network of people. Go find some like-minded individuals, right?
Yeah, I mean, the way I built my network was, for some reason, I knew I needed to go places. I don't know how to explain that, but I knew that I needed to show up to find who I was looking for. Right. Even though I didn't know who I was looking for, what I was there for, even sometimes I was just there to be in the space and enjoy it and figure out what it was. So whether that was, a show on a Monday night or a weird event or a workshop at a random studio that I've never heard of, just things that were sort of new and adventurous, and I didn't really know what or who they were, but I went. Right. And I tell you, those were the places where I found all of those people who have had a huge effect on my life, who've become really good, dear friends, who have gotten me some crazy jobs. Yeah. Another one of my first jobs was singing at Grammy MusiCares with Dolly Parton. Like, it was just nuts.
I was going to ask you about that.
I got to.
Yeah.
It was nuts because that was one of those examples that it was an Instagram thing. I tell you, Instagram is crazy. I've gotten some of the best jobs off of Instagram. Like,
Right.
no less.
Right.
So yeah, it's just like you got to take some chances there, and sometimes it's hard to know which one. So I was, for some reason, maybe it was because I was new to everything, and I just had such a wonder about me.
Hmm.
I wasn't too scared of those things. I just decided to go as much as I could and just dive in. And that's really when I asked friends, you know, how they had gotten into it, or their stories of success and lessons that I could learn from them. That's what they said. They said they just
Mm,
dove in 100%.
that's right.
So yeah, that's
That's
kind
it. Well, I always like to say, get up, dress up, and show up,
of.
and that's half the battle. And
Yeah,
once you get to that destination, like you said, you might not even really be sure why you're there, but as long as you're there, something's gonna happen. Something's gonna go down, and
the
that's a
amount
good
of
thing.
times I've ended up at some sketchy bar or some like weird part of Los Angeles with a friend, or singing on some weird projects that I don't even know who the producers are. Like, there's some weird stuff that has definitely happened, and I actually think it's pretty funny. I've
Yeah,
definitely taken steps to
yeah,
stay safe, of course,
yeah, yeah.
but there's just so many funny stories about that process of
Right.
finding where you want to be. Because I really didn't know. I didn't know what sessions, session singers or session musicians were before I got to Scott Frankfurt's studio. No idea.
Mm.
I'd never, I didn't know you could make money singing into a mic in a special studio space that just looks and feels incredible, and then get this thing called residuals. And then, oh, you could work for TV, and that's even better money. And oh, shoot, these background singers and the voice, that's their full time
Right.
job. Like,
Right.
idea this was a world. And
Right.
in fact, when I tell people who aren't musicians that I'm a session singer, they're usually
Mhm.
like, what what is that?
What is that? Right.
What
Most,
is what?
yeah. The average person doesn't really understand what that is. Yeah. Or a session musician, same. So
Oh,
okay. So for those listening who really aren't sure about the whole world, what V is talking about is basically, a producer will produce a song or an album for an artist, and they hire musicians and singers, and session musicians and singers. And obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you're kind of hip to what that is, but all of the good stuff comes, you do the job and you usually get paid, right? So you get paid your production fee, your work fee. But then when it's being broadcast on television, or, if it's being streamed on, large channels and in any kind of way, shape, or form, and even if it's just on an album, you get residuals, especially if all the paperwork is done properly and it's unionized. So this is actually a great segue, because I want to talk about you work with SAG, and then, Nights of Swing and so forth. So, listen, again, if you're not familiar with that side of things, everybody listening, do some homework on that. And of course, you can hit us up here for some resources, and, become more aware. But tell us about your association with SAG and how all that panned out with that cool
wow,
show. I checked it out. It's neat.
for sure. Yeah. So SAG, union, non-union, it's always a huge controversy in our session world, and everybody has the freedom to make whatever choice they make. You just also have to know that you can't have the best of, you can't have both,
Yeah.
right? And it really was a decision to join with the union and to say, okay, I want to align with a lot of their values and their
Right.
actions and their really good rates for
Mhm.
singers when you do
Right.
get a union job, the residuals that come with that, and the fact that they're protected by the union. They're going to go after anyone who doesn't give them to you. That definitely happens.
You have an
Um,
advocate working in your behalf. Yeah.
I had a friend, 20 years went by before she started seeing residuals for something she did.
Yeah, that's
And
not right.
she got paid loads, but it took 20
Yeah.
years. You
Yeah.
know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
They had to fight for that after she joined the union. So,
Sure.
um, it's definitely a form of protection. There are definitely, there's always some disadvantages. A lot of work is going non-union just because it's expensive going through union work.
Yeah.
So we're fighting to keep the work here in Los Angeles. A lot of it's going to London right now as session singers because It's cheaper over there, you know. They're doing a lot more non-union work.
Which is ironic because London is an expensive city.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely give and take. It's a choice to make. But I ended up aligning with a guy called Gerald White. Gerald White is another person, one of those 10 on my list. But Gerald represented SAG to me when I first met him. He was kind of my first step into the session industry. So he was doing some sight singing classes at the union itself. And that's where I met a lot of my best friends. And I met a lot of my coworkers. And I was getting to show off some of my sight singing skills to Gerald, who was a big time tenor session singer in LA. And after talking to him for a couple years, he just kind of counseled me to be like, hey, I think you should join the union. And
smart.
Yeah, so I did.
Right. So talk about that process again for the listeners who aren't familiar, if you don't mind.
One really important detail that I had to learn after like a year and a half. For some reason, they don't tell people this. If you're an actress or an actor, you have to get 3 jobs. This is to my current knowledge.
Yep.
Anything can change at any time. You have to get 3 jobs, and then you have to get Taft-Hartley'd into the union, which just means like you have to get the attention of a producer who's going to sign a piece of paper and say, this counts as one of those 3 things. Yeah. It's so much easier as a singer because you only have to get one of those. So my one of those was the Disney Channel job. And that was given to me. It was a really last minute thing. Getting the job was an absolute miracle. That's a crazy story on its own. But when I landed the job, that's when I got Taft-Hartley'd into the union so that I could do Nights of Swing. And Nights of Swing was a really, really enjoyable project. It was a long project too. It was about a 2-year project, and now it's going to be a movie, not a TV show anymore, a movie.
Wow. Are you in the film as well?
I am one of the jazz singers. Yes.
That's awesome.
I'm basically like the Andrews sisters. There's a trio of us girls, and I'm the lowest alto, doing I'm doing those types of things.
Nice.
So it's super fun. Yeah.
You have a wide range too, because you said you started in choir when you were younger as a soprano, right? Yeah. And then you developed this low alto tone as well. And from what we can hear, like in the recording with the Earth, Wind, and Fire song, you have a nice rich timbre, kind of, in the lower register.
Yeah. Well, it's really funny because I really hated my voice when I was young. I just thought it was so high and nosy and just like, I really hated it. And over time, I came to learn how to love myself and, all that. But I started listening to singers like, I found Tori Kelly on YouTube before she got big, okay? Tori Kelly on YouTube doing covers. Incredible. Mm-hmm. Just her and the guitar. Her PYT cover of Michael, oh my God. The riff that she does going up, just like, just absolutely slayed by her. So I started listening to her. She had that range that I wanted so desperately. She could go way up into the rafters. And she also had this really low, rich sound as well. And then when I started listening to the guys, Stevie Wonder, Frank Sinatra, the Rat Pack, I started listening to them. So I started forcing myself to sing in their range.
Right.
And I just, again, my story is just pieces built like this. Like I didn't know what I was doing, but I loved it. So I just followed my heart. And I loved the low, warm sounds. One of my favorite singers right now of all time is Layla Hathaway. Mm-hmm. She's
incredible. Yeah.
Her voice, I just feel like I'm melting into the softest sheets.
Yeah. She's fantastic. I've worked with her quite a bit. I've written a few songs with her as well. She's just a sweetheart of a person. And of course, the legacy, of who her father was, and she really has carried that legacy on in such an amazing way to the fullest.
So when I heard her singing, I was like, I gotta try that. Whatever she's doing, I gotta try to do that. So
well, again, I keep harping on that because I want people out there who who might have a similar experience coming from the classical world, or might just might not, maybe they got started a little later in life in music. It's really cool how you took you literally did like a 180. You're headed in this direction, you stop and you turn, you go the other direction. But the good news is, and this is the message for people to really listen to, is that what you're doing over here in this initial direction is actually building the foundation, and it's going to inform your new decision to go in the other direction. Yes. Don't think of it as starting over. You literally were preparing for it, but just in a different way.
Absolutely. Even mistakes.
Right.
Mistakes all contribute to that foundation building. And I think a lot of times classical musicians are so bred and trained not to make mistakes.
Right.
That when we do make them in the classical world, they have great consequence. But it just changes in other genres, in other worlds, and it's nice and freeing, but it's really I don't know, those mistakes, they just all contribute to making you the musician that you are and allowing you the emotional freedom to play around.
Well, you just
continue to have fun.
Yeah, you just said it. The freedom, the emotional freedom, the creative freedom, the right to have individual expression. And in the legit classical world, those things are typically frowned upon.
Yeah, I mean, it's just different how you do it.
Right.
What I loved about and still love about accompanying on the piano, I'm almost creating my own story with my accompaniment, while the soloist is making their own, and our stories are kind of coming together and creating this really comprehensive, like full thing. And it's very ethereal, so it's hard to describe. That there definitely is freedom within the expression classically. It just has a lot of rules, lots and lots of rules and boundaries, especially if you're comparing it to jazz, which is just like, it's just this open gate, and you're like, what is happening here? It's amazing.
Yeah, there's not much of a comparison. Yeah. So in that sense. Okay, well, let's talk about what you're going to do now. So you have this great career as a session singer. You play the piano, from what I understand, for yourself, for your own music, or are you working as a piano player as well? Well, you said you're an accompanist, right? Yeah, so that makes sense.
I haven't done too much accompanying in the past, probably, couple years, just because other than COVID, my focus has been more on my voice. So I definitely play piano as sort of, I don't know, I kind of use it as a way to bless people. So if someone's looking for someone to play for a funeral, a wedding.
Nice.
That's like something I can just use, even just background music. I love it.
Great.
I'll just pull out like 3 of my favorite, piano books, open them up, just start reading, and I was
going to ask you, so your repertoire is vast, from classical to jazz, pop, in between, everything?
Yeah, I have a big library.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Do you have a lot of that repertoire committed to memory, or is it mostly just sight reading?
It's reading.
Okay.
Yeah, memory's really hard for me, especially after that big that big one that I memorized. I think it just took up all my brain space. 'Cause honestly,
90 pages of music. I can't imagine working on a piece that takes 12 months to memorize. I mean, that's insane. Look, I committed to memory early on. I'll never forget this. When I was 15 years old, Paganini's 16th Caprice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I love it. I play it on guitar and I love it. And still to this day, I have it memorized note for note, from when I was 15. Okay. And that was when you're 15, when you're younger, it's easier. But that was maybe 3 or 4 pages of music. Right. 90 pages. I was just like,
And 90 pages of
insanity.
Just
like, yeah.
Just, it was a lot.
Yeah.
So I kind of got a sour, taste in my mouth for memorizing. So I stay away from things I don't like anymore. So I really don't like memorizing music. And I actually don't enjoy like improv that much, because I don't really know how.
That's what I was going to ask next. And this really is the $64 million question, as we used to say back in the day. Here's the deal. oftentimes classical musicians that transfer over into the jazz world, that is an issue. And I was going to ask you about harmony and improvisation.
Super tough. I mean,
Okay.
so first things first. This is another kind of unique part. Even though I was a classical musician, I grew up with very elementary level theory. So theory was super tough for my brain. Really, really tough.
Really, that's interesting.
It was a language that it felt nearly impossible for me to figure out while I was growing up with it. So my teacher used to tell me, Ivana, your playing is like level 20 out of 20, but your theory is as like worse than a fourth grader's. And I was just like,
Now, was that just because was it just because you didn't spend the time applying yourself in that area, or were you not taught it from an early stage properly, or?
So I really struggle with math. Really
Okay.
tough subject
As
in school for me.
as do I.
Only subject I ever struggled with.
Yeah.
Everything else was great. Science, history, loved it.
Yeah.
Theory was so mathematical that whether or not it was a combination of absolute hate or not applying myself, right, and not being super disciplined about it, who knows? But it was just a big struggle for me. And so my classical theory didn't necessarily come along with my classical performance. So when I got to jazz and there was jazz theory, I was really overwhelmed at first because it was so foreign. And most of these concepts I probably would have learned had I really pushed through all my classical theory. But just even like chord theory and some like circle of fifths was even really difficult for me to understand when I was coming into it. So it's just like it's been a very interesting part of my journey. Everywhere I've gone, I have been searching for someone to really help me understand that theoretical component to jazz and even to gospel, which I think that's also a little bit complicated there. But if you grew up playing it in church, it just kind of comes out of you. So I am having to relearn that stuff in a very technical way, and I don't really enjoy that as much.
Right.
So, yeah, so it's definitely interesting. I've definitely heard of people who went from classical to jazz, no problem. They were able to figure out the improv thing. They were able to do that. But then the majority of us kind of fall into that space where it's like we're probably really good at reading, and we're probably really good at giving the producer what they want.
Right.
The producer says, A, B, C, D, I want that.
Yeah.
We can do that. That's why I'm a great session singer. Probably it's because of my classical upbringing. Because I can listen to what they're saying and just go, oh, you want this? Okay, great. And I'll do it.
And the accuracy there has to be spot on,
And because I'm a piano player, my ear is always thinking, I don't want to say this, my ear is always almost like I've heard these pitches for so long on the piano that my ear is always kind of measuring up to that. Whereas sometimes singers who are just singers, they're not super. First of all, singers are not tight on their rhythm at all. And that was one thing. That was one thing that I really brought to the table. But the other thing was just the pitch in general. I love that when you play the piano, an A is an A, and it's always going to be an A.
Well, that's that pitch accuracy. Yes. Not fluctuating in the space between the notes, but being accurately on. That is so important.
Yeah. So those were kind of the struggles of coming into leaving classical, coming into jazz. So really what I did was I just stuck with the greats like George Shearing, Art Tatum.
There you go.
Playing their transcripts.
Art Tatum, man, that's some serious chops.
Dude, I've been trying to learn T for two, Art Tatum, for like forever.
And he has so many takes on it. Like I remember I had an album that he had 3 or 4 takes of T for 2 on there.
Right. And they're all different. So that's what I do. Yeah, I read. That's kind of just my main skill there. And improv, I'm slowly I'm working with Gerald White.
Oh, good.
The teacher I talked about before.
Excellent.
And he's just kind of working me through some of that, and that came as a great aid when I did If I Ever Lose This Heaven, because there was no notes. Like it just had to come from here. you know.
Mm.
So that was actually a challenge for me. And the piano part itself was very simple because it was just da-na, da-na. That was
Right.
it. I was really,
Right.
and sometimes I play a little something. I had a little, you know, fancy something at the end. But it was even just figuring out those chords
Hmm.
with my ear, which I never had to do before. It's like, this is crazy. So people who can hear stuff on the radio and then just sit down and play it, I just think they are the most talented people ever. It's insane.
Well, it's an acquired skill like anything else.
Yeah.
You know, I wish you the best of luck on that journey, and I'm
Thank you.
confident that you can crush it like you've crushed so much of the other, you know, aspects of your career. So are you headed to be an artist? Do you, now that you've had a taste of that,
Yeah,
of both worlds, do you want to be an artist? Do you want to be a session singer, or a little bit of both, or you just want to do really the artist thing?
for sure. So glad you're asking this question because I've been asked this question every day for the past like 2 months.
Hmm.
Um,
It's important.
so, right. So, as you know, the video skyrocketed last month.
Oh, I
And
didn't know it skyrocketed last month.
yeah, so well, and the month before it, it started getting some views, but then last month it just took off. So we're at like over 750,000 views,
Oh, that's great.
and these are all organic, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
the video is being shared around the world. We haven't done any promotion on it, so that's just what's crazy about this whole journey for me.
So sorry, I just went there to check it out.
Yeah.
Yes, you're at 782,
Hey,
782,000.
shoot. All right.
Yeah.
So there you go. So that is all. The first 30,000 views were friends and family when it first dropped.
Okay.
After that, it took, another year to get to 50, 60, 70. And then once we hit 80 a couple months ago, it just blew up. And this question of, do I really have a presence here as an artist started becoming a real question.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so glad you're asking me this because I've been just thinking about it a lot and been wanting to tell people. But yeah, I'm ready to step out as V. Jordan, the artist. And
Yeah.
it's super crazy to me because, again, I told you, I was almost like dragged into this world, kicking and screaming, So it's
Right.
insane that I have this opportunity, and as I've told you, I love taking shots and seeing what's going to happen. And this is kind of one of those huge leaps for me that I could have never foreseen. So I'm so grateful for everyone that's watched the video and shared it and contributed because it really has helped me gain the confidence to say, okay,
You can do this.
yeah, I,
Yeah.
I, I have a video with this many views. I've played with these incredible cats.
Well, I was gonna say not only that, you got the cats on the video. You know,
Yeah,
Scott really
insane.
helped. He really helped you put together the team of the team. You
It
know,
was insane.
a
And
great dream team.
I was just serving them coffee.
Yeah.
Like they didn't know I could sing. They
Yeah.
didn't know I could play. But they
Gotcha.
said yes. And they were just happy to do it. And then when I told them it was gonna be, a Quincy song, a Leon Ware song, they were like, oh shoot, come on now. And it was all this
Yeah.
jazz funk and we had such a good time. And now, I'll be working with some of them again and it'll be on my own stuff. So
Okay.
that's kind of what we're just really excited to see what I develop into as an artist. But right now, yeah, it's mostly just going to be exploring all those deep dives, that those old classics that maybe you haven't heard for a long time and you want to hear a girl sing it and you want to hear a
Yeah.
Latina sing it, right? You're like,
Yeah.
whoa,
Yeah.
that's a fresh take on something I haven't heard in a while or that I've loved, way back when I was 12 in the 70s and
Right.
in the 60s, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and by the way, do you sing in Spanish? Are you bilingual?
I do sing in Spanish. Yes.
That's awesome. Okay, that's so funny because I can sing in Spanish, but my speaking is ass.
Yeah. No,
I need to brush up.
all of us
Yeah.
first, second generation
Generation, I know.
Latinos are dealing with the same issue. It's like,
Oh man, I'm like,
I don't know about your parents, but my parents said to me, you know, you're gonna master English. You know,
Yeah.
you're gonna master English because
It's the
you're in
same.
America. Go to America, you must master English.
My
And
dad was the same way. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I did,
Yeah.
and now I can't. Now Spanish is tough, but
Dude.
yeah, I definitely sing, read, write.
Yeah.
I've been working with a Spanish composer for the past like 5 months. We've done a bunch of songs together, working on some lyrics. So yeah, it's been good. I've been getting a lot more into the Spanish side of things and Portuguese actually.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, Sergio Mendes, what a great,
Yeah.
way to come into the studio scene. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So look, everybody can go to, right now it's currently vocalsbyv.com,
Hmm.
right? So vocals by V, and V is vi.com. Go there. You can check her out. She's connected. You're connected with your Instagram and everything, your Facebook. Anything else that you want to talk to people? Oh, also the YouTube video is there with the Earth, Wind, and Fire band. And,
Sure.
anything else that you want to say as far as, words of wisdom or your path to success according to you from your perspective?
You know, I would just reiterate that to me, relationships are all the success that you can really get in the world. You know,
The R word.
you can get far, you can make all the money you want to make, you can make all the records you want to make with all the cats you want to make, but the relationships are what carries the weight and will take you really far. So I mean, I just believe I'm such a testimony to that because I just don't see how I would have gotten anywhere near where I am without the
Yeah.
people that are around me. So
Yeah.
being kind to people and reaching out to them for help and also offering help. A lot of times pro bono and just out of the goodness of your heart and being like, yeah, let me help you with that funeral. Yeah, let me help you out with the really bad choir that you want me to play and sing at. Just like, let me, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, you'd be surprised where it leads. You'd never know. Yeah.
never. So yeah, relationships are, I tend to measure my success with those relationships first and then to see where I've been brought. So yeah, just a lot of gratitude, a lot of good people, and have fun. Like really enjoy it. I really early on I decided that I wasn't going to go to music school, classical music school, because I was afraid that I would fall out of love with my piano because I would be so systematized and disciplined, and I would have learned a lot of amazing things, but I really think that would have hurt my relationship to my piano and to my music, my creativity. So I decided not to go. I decided to
Yeah.
just keep having fun.
It's very, very task oriented, that world, right?
Yes.
You just, it becomes a task, a daily task.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in every world, it looks different, you know, that kind of task oriented, whatever sucks the joy out of it for you.
Right.
But for me, I decided to keep that front and center because I can go to school whenever I want, but I may not be able to restore and keep that love. So yeah, keeping the love for your instrument and your music and people. Those are kind of just my biggest words.
Excellent. You heard it here, folks. V. Jordan is on the precipice of her career as an artist. So be on the lookout. And this is awesome with almost 800,000 views.
Yeah.
If I ever lose this heaven,
Dang.
killing it.
Wow, that's insane.
Thanks for being our guest today, V.
You are so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
Absolutely. Okay, you ready for some rapid fire?
Oh, yeah.
Fun rapid fire.
All
All right. So you've never been on tour yet, right?
No.
All right, so I can't ask you that one.
Okay. No.
I would usually say three tour essentials.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Now all right, here we go. Favorite city?
Favorite city, Mallorca, Spain.
Mallorca, Spain. Well, you've been out of the country. You've been to Mallorca, Spain. There you go. So were you touring?
No, I was on a cruise ship.
Okay. Instrument you wish you played?
Instrument, electric guitar.
I got a bunch of them on that wall. You can't see.
Oh, nice. Nice. Some acoustics back there.
All right. Top 3 artists in your playlist?
Let's see. We got Bobby Caldwell right now,
Nice.
Al Jarreau, and we got some Buena Vista Social Club.
Ooh, love Buena Vista.
Yeah.
Studio or live? Which do you prefer?
Studio.
Yeah, you sound like me. That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Your friends would say you are.
Friends would say, oh, man, that's a tough one. I think they would say I was grounded.
Good one. Favorite decade of music?
2000s.
What entertains you? As an entertainer, we entertain others, but what entertains you?
Just some really good comical movies. I'm in love with Will Ferrell right now.
Ah, he's awesome.
I'm watching The Other Guys like every other day.
There you go.
He's
Hidden talents.
Hidden talents. Oh gosh. I can tap dance.
There you go. I would have never guessed that. All right. Dream collaboration. Somebody you want to collaborate with throughout your career at some point.
I gotta go with the big dog, Stevie Wonder.
Stevie, you've had some good ones thus far. Yeah. Nice. And finally, the proverbial drum roll. What would you do if you weren't a career musician?
If I wasn't a career musician, I would be a health coach.
I was going to guess that. Yeah. A nutritionist, like you mentioned.
Teaching nutrition, helping people get healthy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I love it. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
V. Jordan.